as a Titan broadcast team, as a Titan faithful, I don't think I've ever been so proud of a football team as I was Friday night, and I'm sure when you were in the locker room with your kids, you probably felt the same way.
Yeah, you know what, they battled, and that's really all we asked them to do. Going into that game, no one gave them a snowball's chance, and those kids, we were resilient. We got down 14 points, and they could have folded their tents, and they could have easily let that thing snowball, but we didn't. We stayed resilient throughout the process, and that's really what we preach to our kids. It's about the process and staying in the moment. It's not about that scoreboard. Just do what you can do. Be as excellent as you can be, time in and time out, and then good things will happen. And that's what our kids are able to do.
So many great performances. It was nice to see Gary Batts back on the field. And from our point of view, it seemed to change the attitude of your defense as well.
Oh, without question. Gary is our defensive quarterback. He brings a level of comfort to our defense. He brings a level of tenacity to our defense. Our guys know that if anything breaks to that first level, that if he's back there, odds are it's going to get down. So I can't tell you how valuable of a player he is to us, and you just saw the difference in our defense.
Brady sure took a lot of shots in the game, but just his resilience throughout that game was incredible.
Yeah, it was. And, the big thing that we're trying to get him to understand is that he is an athletic young man. He can use his legs to get out of some things. I think he was standing in the pocket just a little bit too long. The one touchdown that he hit, he used his legs for a while. He dodged a bullet. He saw Thomas deep, and he went to him. So we've just talked to him this week about, using your legs a little more, even running occasionally. If nothing's there, take a quick, easy 6 and slide. Because he is such a good athlete, but he is very, very poised in the pocket, and it showed up last Friday.
Talk about running that 7-yard run. When the play first developed, I'm thinking he's running straight for that pylon. When he hesitated, I thought, in the back of my mind, it's like, what are you doing slowing down? But, man, it worked out.
Oh, yeah. He's an athlete. He's a basketball player. It's no different. What he did at that time was just like a crossover move in basketball. He gave a guy a little head fake outside. The guy bit on it, and he was able to break back inside. So that's the thing. He's a good enough athlete that he needs to incorporate that into his game just a little bit more.
And the thing is, there are so many, big plays in the game. But, the one when you're sitting there and they had the bad punt snap, and you got like 2 guys there, and Duckett somehow comes out of the pile with it.
Yeah.
And you look at like 2 points compared to 7 points. But at that time, a 5-point difference just would have changed the entire game.
Oh, yeah. I think that even that 2 points changed everything. The fact that they had a breakdown in special teams changed everything. In games like that, it really boils down to turnovers and big plays like that. And that's what I thought toward the end of the game after we got that last turnover. I thought that was going to be our opportunity to go down. We were down 2 at that time, and our kicker, Gabe Schlabowski, has practiced this all year, that we were going to take that thing down, at least get in the field goal range, and as time expired, he was going to kick a game-winning field goal. That was my mindset going into it, that if we weren't going to score, he was a good enough kicker that he was going to put it through the uprights, and the Titans were going to be celebrating. And unfortunately, that didn't happen.
And the thing is, there's like 3:53 of the ball's in your hand.
Right.
When that play developed, it looked like Brady was ducking. He's going to take the sack. From our point of view, we never saw a ball come loose. When you look at the film, do you see ball come loose? How tough was that call to take?
Well, you know what we did when we watched the film, we did not see a ball come loose. We still haven't seen a ball come loose. But that's one of those situations, unfortunately, that a lot of times when we play, not only do we have to defeat the opponent that's on the field, we have to deal with a lot of preconceived bias that some of the officials bring into our games. And that's just our lot in life. That's part of being a Titan. People have expectations that we are a certain way, and those permeate, and it's just human nature that people bring into those games, their personality and their personal biases, whatever they may be, positive or negative. And sometimes we have to overcome those things as well. But that's life, and those are the things that we have to deal with, and you don't cry over them, you deal with them.
Speaking about Whitmer coming up on Friday, when you play a game as emotional as Central was on Friday as a coach, and you're a former player, I'm sure you've had back-to-back games where you can't be emotional for every darn football game. How do you bring the kids back from a game like Central to get ready for Whitmer?
Well, it's all done in the off season and preseason, because one, you know the schedule, but if you're a procedural team and it's all about the process, and you don't ebb and flow based on your wins and your losses, and you really just sell the kids on the idea of our goal is to get better each week. And that's the goal, to get better each week. So tomorrow we'll be looking forward to young men getting better than they were last week. And that's the measuring stick. It's never the scoreboard. It can't be, just because, like what you're saying, emotionally you can't do that to yourself. I'll have a heart attack or I'll be bald. I'm going bald anyway, but the heart attack thing, I'm pretty good with that. So it's one of those things that, once again, it has to go back to the process, and the process has to be, are we reaching our full potential, not the W's and the L's.
We knew Whitmer was going to be tough this year anyway with Riley Keller at quarterback, but boy, bringing this kid Jared Banks from Monroe, he adds a whole new dimension to these guys, doesn't he?
He really does. Watching him and watching him play, he is a very, very good running back. I think if he was a kid that was in our league for the last couple of years, he would be a young man that would have offers right now. I don't know what he has going from a college standpoint. I just know he's a dynamic back. He runs very hard. He continues to churn his legs. He's very similar to the back we just faced at Central. I think Jonzel may be a little bit bigger, but this young man does an outstanding job, and he has a really, really good offensive line, and they're very proficient at what they do.
Coach Mack, good to see you. We'll
Thank
see you
you,
over at Whitmer Memorial tomorrow night, young man. When we come back, we're going to talk to head crew coach Chris Samuel is in the house. We're live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. And welcome back, everybody. We're live from the sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. I'm Gary Sensenstein. I'm with Braden Moriarty. He's working the board back at the Wolf. As always, the folks from BCS are here as we're streaming this show live. And joining us now, head crew coach Chris Samuel. We just talked a couple weeks ago when you didn't really haven't hit the water yet, but you finally hit the water. You finally competed at Cuyahoga. Talk about it.
So we went to Cleveland last weekend. The Cleveland Rowing Federation puts on a really nice event. They had a couple 500, 600 boats racing, and lots of vendors and teams. So it's a good place for the new parents to come and experience something that's fun.
And for you, it must be nice to finally get in the event, get the guys in the water. Yeah,
absolutely. There's about a week where we were really kind of in a lull waiting for something to happen, and they got out there and they got a chance to race, which was an additional motivating factor for them.
What'd you see at Cuyahoga that you liked?
The rowing was really, really good from all of the boats. I had some alumni there, and they were really impressed with the technical aspect of what we were doing, and they said that there was definitely improvement on years past.
You know, again, a year ago, Pete Fox you guys had a real senior-laden team, but you lost a lot of guys. Talk about the loss of those seniors and the guys that you have now.
Yeah, so then the guys that we have now knew that was kind of going to be a big loss. There was some decent speed graduating in that class. We had 4 guys go to nationals and compete and medal at nationals. But they've stepped it up, and they're working hard to make the strides to play catch up a little bit.
In the off season, did you do more maybe with these kids? Coming into a season when there's maybe fewer expectations coming in.
Yeah, well, I got them started a little earlier than they've been getting started. We started at the beginning of August. Recently, they've been starting, when school starts. But really, what we want to do in summers in the future and in the off season is to get kids out on the water and rowing for Toledo in the summer as well.
Do a lot of guys compete in the off season? Are they rowing on the Maumee?
Yeah. So the rowing is kind of an 11-month sport. It's a training-based sport. You have to train. You have to do it. And so you see the guys that are really dedicated out there, and they really don't take time off.
I was talking to one of the moms earlier before we came on, and she was saying that for this year, with the way your approach is, you seem to be more physical, that you're dealing with the physical aspect of the sport more.
Yeah, like I was saying, you get better by doing rowing and running and erging and whatever it is. So we got to put the miles in, we got to put the meters in to get better.
Tell me about the novice team that won.
Yeah, so we've got some pretty good novice coaches. Jared Rabb was Anthony Wayne rower who was pretty successful, and then Colin was one of the guys that graduated last year, and he's been working with them. We knew they were pretty fast coming into the race in Cleveland, and then they came out and they came away with a gold medal against some pretty fast novice crews from our regional competitors, St. Ignatius, St. Ed's, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and Perrysburg. And they won by less than 0.01 seconds, which is like an inch over a 5,000 meter race, which is really, really crazy.
Is it one of those things? Did you see it coming? Did you see it develop, or were you just watching the race, saying like, "Hey, whoa, these guys could win this race"?
Well, the thing about the racing is you really don't see the boats until the last 100, 200 meters or whatever of the race course, especially at Cuyahoga, because it's kind of a big winding, snaking course. Usually the courses are kind of open and you can see a little bit more, but they had a couple of workouts where they were next to the varsity boats in the week or two before the regatta, and we thought, okay, these guys can do something and they can be competitive.
Speaking of regattas, you got the big one this weekend on the Maumee, the Frogtown.
Yeah. So we'll be all day at International Park on Saturday. Racing, and there's an alumni race as well around lunchtime that we're looking forward to having the alumni back for that. And that's our hometown regatta, right? So that's where we get to kind of be the hosts and show off what our rowing on Toledo is all about.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that mean to you, that having that Frogtown regatta, having those people lined up along the shore there?
Yeah, and it's especially for me as someone that lives downtown. I think it's really important because we're bringing people in from Detroit, from Cleveland, from Columbus, from Chicago, to really get exposure for what we're doing.
Other than you guys around here and a couple other teams, when you look around the country as far as high schools go, where's the biggest competition come from?
So you see a lot in Florida. In California, they're able to row all year round, and it's nice there. But I mean, a lot of it. I mean, rowing is coming from the East Coast, from the old money elite. So a lot of the private schools out in D.C. and in New York and in Boston. That's when we go to the nationals. That's where it's coming from.
Now, when you guys row, do you see coaches come in from across the country looking for guys?
You mean collegiately?
Collegiately.
Yeah. So we actually, I got an email the other day from Mercyhurst College. They were at Cleveland, and they were recruiting. And we get, I'll get emails here and there from coaches. It's a little bit harder. Guys rowing is not NCAA. Okay. So it's a little bit more rare that you get coaches actively recruiting.
It's funny. A year ago, I was talking to Pete Fox about the book, Boys in the Boat.
Oh, yeah.
And how popular Crew was back in the 30s and the 40s and stuff. And it was broadcast on radio and things like that.
Yeah.
From where that was, you were talking before, it's like it was an East Coast thing, or it was Cal,
and
it was Washington.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way college is now, is there a lot more colleges these kids can go to?
Yeah, well, I mean, and really this was something I didn't look into, but like all across the Midwest and through the central states, I mean, I think like Oklahoma City, for example, is Oklahoma City University. You would never think about that, but they have an elite rowing program. Or Florida Institute of Technology, and Drexel. There's a fair number of smaller D1 schools and D3 schools that have competitive rowing teams and good rowing teams. Yeah.
Chris, good to see you as always.
Yeah.
A good time at the Frogtown,
Thank
man.
you.
When we come back, senior rowers Jacob Lowry and John Deal are in the house. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Back, everybody. We're live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf, as promised. Senior captain rowers Jacob Lowry and John Deal. And first with you, Jacob, talk about Cuyahoga, the experience over the weekend.
Yeah, Cuyahoga has always been one of my favorite races of the year, just because I love the city of Cleveland. I have family there. It's really just a cool experience for me to get to see all of that, like, up close. And you know, the race itself, it's one of the most unconventional crew races you'll ever have because the river is just unreal. Like, there's a curve every 250, 500 meters, and it's just brutal, turning, more pressure, less pressure. But overall, the team did really well, a lot better than I expected us to be honest. And I was really impressed with how we placed, how we competed, and it's a really successful experience.
Well, you're a Cleveland guy. What do you think about that? We're just talking about the Browns and Baker Mayfield and these guys. You're a little nervous about the Browns nowadays?
I'm actually an Eagles fan.
Are you really?
Yeah.
That's even worse for you.
Yeah, no, it's not pretty this year, but we'll get through it.
How about for you, John? You know, the way the weekend went, you know, we were talking about the novices win. You know, all in all, a really successful weekend for you guys.
Yeah, the novices ended up learning a lot, and their Coxswain Amit, who's going to be on here later, did a really fantastic job of steering that boat through that last corner, which ended up winning it for him. Cuyahoga is a crazy course. It's always really fun to go to, but it's really strenuous. It makes 6,000 meters feel like 10,000.
You know, but for you guys, I mean, even if it was like the Ottawa River, you guys just really wanted to compete because it's been a long time since you guys hit the water, just getting out there and competing against somebody else.
Yep. Yeah, it's been a while in our off-season, kind of, and we never really got a taste for racing until Cuyahoga.
So, Jacob, tell me about the off-season. How much did it change from there? You've been there for 4 years now. Did it change a lot going from Pete to Chris?
Well, the culture, the overall team, like morale, hasn't really changed much. The practice schedule is ramped up a little bit to where we're competing more and we're, you know, more brutal schedule, more practice hours. But overall, the team's still the team. The team's what it's always been as far as I've been there. Like, being a senior is obviously very different for me, but overall, the team hasn't changed all that much that I've noticed.
What gets a kid from St. John's to steer to crew? How did that come about?
Well, I'll be honest, it's not what I was expecting to do. I came in thinking football or lacrosse or hockey, maybe even just try something out. But my older brother was a rower for all 4 years as well. He was always the most positive, like, speaker of crew. He always talked it up so much. And one day in the summer coming into freshman year, I was like, might as well try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And it's just stuck.
How about for you, John? How did that come about for you?
It came about for me because I wasn't really happy with where I was at freshman year. So sophomore year I joined, and I really wanted a challenge. So I picked it up, and I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. Way to stay in shape, way to perform. And then it ended up I turned out being really competitive in it, and I was really enjoying it.
Was it everything you thought you'd be when you got into it, or was it harder? Was it easier than you thought?
It was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I thought it was just going to be like moving boats and trying to move something down a river, but it ended up being really, really challenging for me, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, how about for you, Jacob? Same thing?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot harder than meets the eye. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of technique. It's more than the average person thinks it is.
Yeah. Now, I understand you guys did a triathlon in the school.
Yeah.
Explain to me, you know, how a triathlon works inside the halls of St. John's Jesuit.
Well, we actually did it outside on Leiden Field.
Okay.
Well, kind of. We were out on the track, and it was 2,500 meters on the erg, which is about 10 minutes at full pressure, give or take. And then 5 laps around the entire track, and then up and down every set of stairs in the stadium, and no breaks, and you just keep going, and your overall performance is timed.
Yep.
How was it for you, John?
It was good. I got off to a good start in the beginning, and then just kind of stuck with it. It was kind of eye-opening, though, because I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Now, I know you guys went out of your way and got your own 2-man boat. How'd that come about?
Yeah, I'll let him speak to that. It's sort of more of his ordeal than mine.
So over the summer, we went to a rowing camp, and we had always me and my buddy always wanted to just row our own kind of boat and be really competitive, because we are really kind of getting that with the 8-man boat and the 4-man boat, but the 2-man boat is kind of like our little way to be as competitive as possible that we could be, and we were really planning on, like, this season, really trying to ramp it up and get medals.
Nice. Jacob, you know Frogtown's coming up this weekend. What's it mean for you guys to host it?
Oh, it's always a cool experience because crew is a traveling sport. It's a sport where you're never like sitting down too much. You're always moving stuff to one place or another. And just to have a regatta at home where it's all relaxed and you don't have to worry about the transportation aspect of it, it's good to be able to compete with a clear mind, knowing that all that's already taken care of and not something that you have to worry about.
How competitive is it? Do you know the teams you compete against, or you just kind of just focus on what you guys are doing in the water?
Some of the teams we compete against are really competitive. Like Orchard Lake, they're always a really competitive crew, but in the fall they're a little bit slower because they don't have all their football guys. But crews like Huron and Ignatius, they're always really fast, and that's kind of what we're striving to be.
It's good to see both of you. Jacob, John, good to see you as well. When we come back, we have some more senior captains, Chet Melchek and Andrew Dake. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. And welcome back, everybody. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. I'm Gary Sensenstein with Braden Moriarty. He's working the board back at the Wolf as promised. Senior Captain Rowers Chet Melchek and also Andrew Dake are in the house. And first, I'll talk to you, Chet, talking about the experience at Cuyahoga over the weekend.
Yeah, Cuyahoga was great. So I personally went out in a 4-boat and an 8-boat. Our 4 boats are, although they were, most of the lineups for them, our varsity 4 was not, but most of the lineups for our 4 boats were made the day of Cuyahoga, which is nice because we get to experience them on the fly, quick rowing. They did surprisingly well, middle of the pack kind of stuff, but that's typical for our first regatta. So we got work to do, but we're going to plan on doing that. And then for the varsity 8 race, it was good. We finished, I believe, 9th out of 11. So we have work to do there, but it was also, the conditions were a bit weird. It was a hot day. It was like 90, 95. Sun was beating down, and some of our rowers had some complications. But we definitely see a lot of promise for that boat.
Even when it's hot like that, Andrew, does it affect the rowers as much as the boat? Does it affect the boat as well?
Absolutely. You can really feel the boat go slower when it's really hot like that and hot and muggy, especially on a 5,000 meter race like Cuyahoga. It's a really tough course because of all the twists and turns and the small random concrete things coming out of the river. I was in the V4 and that did really well. It was about middle of the pack, but we only lost to Ignatius and Huron and then a couple other boats from that area.
When you're on a river like that and you do have the twists and turns, are there any collisions? Are there any does anybody hit each other?
I remember my freshman year, we had a coxswain, Joey Thaman, who we nicknamed T-Bone because that's exactly what happened. A boat turned in front of us and we had a collision because we didn't turn fast enough. The same thing happened this weekend. There was a bit of like an oar clash, but that's minor, fixable. It happens all the time, especially with the novice boats where they're more inexperienced with navigation and things. But it's easier to avoid when you're varsity.
Andrew, we were talking about the triathlon. How'd you do in the triathlon?
I got 3rd place from the team.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was good. We did erging, running, stairs. Managed to beat the 30-minute mark, which was pretty cool.
I love it. Chad, you guys have been in it for 4 years now. How much has it changed for you since your freshman year when you got started, and are you physically even better than you were in your freshman year?
Yeah, great question because the answer is certainly yes. My freshman year, I was novice, but like my sophomore year, I was in our worst boat, our 3V, our J8. Our J8, I rode with that for 2 years, and now I'm in the varsity 1 boat. I did a lot of work over the summer. Personally, crew has really kicked me into shape, both like mentally and physically. I feel like a stronger person now. I was definitely a heavyweight rower before, and I still am now, but I've lost 50 pounds over the summer. So I really, it's given me a drive to get into a better boat and really do my best for my teammates and for myself.
I was going to say, you mentioned 50 pounds. Yep. Was that one of those things that you just decided on your own? It's like, hey, it's time to do this?
Yeah. It was the end of my junior year, and I was just like, I've been in the worst boat. I don't like being in the worst boat, and I don't feel confident about my body, and I don't feel like healthy. So I just decided, hey, I'm going to do it. So this summer I made a commitment. I climbed a mountain, hiked 80 miles. I've been doing a diet for the past 3 months.
How about for you, Andrew, when you saw this developing? I mean, obviously as the summer's going on, you knew what he looked like last spring, and you saw him in the fall. What was it like?
He grew a couple inches.
To do that.
Got physically stronger. You definitely see it in the boat. Chet's form has definitely improved over the course of last season into this season, and it's a real pleasure having him in the boat.
For you, Chet, was it more than just being personal for you? Or was it kind of more like, hey, the team needs me to lose 50 pounds?
Definitely a majority of it was mentality for the team because the number one reason that I still do crew, besides liking, staying in shape and everything, is that I want to be a role model for the novices and the incoming freshmen, just as the seniors my freshman year were a major role model for me. So I decided that I need to be in shape, I need to be healthy, and I need to be able to row well to help be a character role model for these freshmen. Because, I've run for captain every year I've been at St. John's, which technically shouldn't be possible, but my coach let me freshman year, so that happened, and now I'm captain, so I have to hold on to that role model.
Perfect. We're proud of you, guy. Andrew, talk about, the development in the last 4 years. Now that you're a senior, when novices come in and freshmen come in, what do you tell them when they first arrive?
Tell them it's going to be a lot of work, but it's definitely going to pay off. When you get a medal after a long time, after working every single day, morning and afternoon, all days on Saturdays, it's really rewarding to be able to feel your boat get better. I was in the 1V8 last season, and for our last row at Midwest, which is the culmination of all the regattas,
it was just so rewarding to be able to feel. It was just so peaceful in that boat.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you get like Titan for a day and maybe somebody's looking at crew, I watch, the way the sports banquet is and the way you kids and the families react at the sports banquet. It's such a family atmosphere. What do you tell a kid when they arrive at St. John's about crew?
We tell them that you'll be a part of the crew family. A few weeks ago, we had part of our house burn, and we're about to get into our house again. Everything's going really well, but crew came up to us just as a complete surprise and helped us out with whatever we needed. It was really cool. Yeah.
Guys, good to see both of you. Andrew, nice meeting you. Chet, we're proud of you, man. Good job with the 50 pounds, man. When we come back, junior rower Seth Parsons and freshman rower Amit Tusay are in the house. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Welcome back, everybody. We're live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Joining us now, junior rower Seth Parsons, freshman rower Amit Tusay, and Seth, we'll go with you first. Again, we've been talking to everybody at Cuyahoga. What was Cuyahoga like for you?
It was a great first race. We've got lots of room for improvement, but it's a good way to get the season started. Tough course, but I feel like we put up a good fight and showed what we were made of.
Talk about your boat and the guys that are on your boat.
It's a new boat, so from last year we had we had Ben Tice and all those guys, and coming back this year, it's really cool to see all these new guys coming in.
It's a lot to live up to, isn't it? Sure. I mean, I was at your banquet last year. I mean, you lost some really good guys.
Yeah, we did. It was a tough blow, but I feel like these guys stepped up, and it's really cool to see them rise to the challenge.
And joining us also is Amit Toussaint. Of course, your brother was a coxswain at St. John's. You have a lot to live up to with just your brother. But, of course, a year ago, Joey Thaman, the historically maybe the best coxswain of all time. What's that like to live up to?
Well, going to other guys, see my brother row, be a coxswain, it's kind of difficult to live up to his name. I used to talk to him about coxing, about what he did to make the boat turn, how he knew his rowers just like Joey did, how he knew how fast his rowers were, what the difficulties they faced when they were rowing.
For these guys, when they actually have the oars, we know physically they have to be ready for the event. How do you get ready for an event? How do you get ready in the off season? How do you become a coxswain?
Well, becoming a coxswain is just going over the drills like over and over again. Wherever you are, you just say it to yourself in your mind, or you say it out loud. You pretend like if you're at a turn, you make sure that you know what you're going to be doing, pretending it's a real race, or if you're just doing practice in general. But it's all just about knowing the commands and knowing your rowers.
I was going to say, Seth, you were talking before we were on the air about coxswains. How important is it to you?
Oh, it's the most important part of the boat. We really couldn't do anything without them. They really keep us going.
Are they really just in control of the race for you guys?
They sure are. Once you're in that race, once you're in that state of mind of I'm going to pull as hard as I can, you put all trust in them, and they're going to steer the right course. They're going to tell you what to do and when to do it.
Wow. Amit, when you showed up at St. John's, obviously it was a given you were going to row, right?
Yeah, my brother rowed, and I found it pretty fun, so I wanted to row.
What for you, what's the best part about it?
I think the best part about rowing is just going on the water. Sometimes whenever we go to practice and we do the inside rowing, it's kind of not fun, but you get to see your friends, you get to row on the water, we get to do fun stuff. Sometimes if the coxswain wins a gold medal on the boat, they throw him in the water, which is kind of a tradition that we have.
Now the race itself, you've been a spectator for years watching the Frogtown. What's it going to mean for you to compete in your first Frogtown this weekend?
Well, we practice at Frogtown every day whenever we go in the water as much as we can, and I feel like we'll do well. We just have to practice a little more. I think we're doing pretty well, but being a spectator for Frogtown for many years, it's kind of a little just bringing back a few memories. I remember my brother, we always get, at St. John's when we go to Frogtown, we usually get at least one medal.
So when you're watching the race and you're going to be involved with it now, when you talk to your brother after a race, do they pay attention to the people on the sidelines, or are they just kind of like rowing down river and not even seeing anything downtown?
Well, they can see pretty much everything. Like, they can see all the buildings, they can see all the people cheering for them, but they won't be able to see the finish. I'm the only one who tells them where the finish is, and I encourage them.
So, Seth, when you guys race at the Frogtown, where do you actually start?
We start all the way down by Anderson's and their grain silos, and we finish right down there by Real Seafood and the restaurants down there, the docks.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the event mean for you?
It's our home regatta. I love it. It's a great course. We know how to row it. We have the advantage. I've been there for a year already, for 2 years, and I'm excited.
Did you have any particular goals coming into the year?
I want to just go out there and have some fun, win as many races as we can, and put up a St. John's boat.
How about for you, Amit? I mean, I know you're fresh to the game, but what kind of goals did you put into the season?
This time, since it's kind of like a home game to us, I'm hoping that we get through the course as fast as possible, being our time. Not really necessarily focusing on that medal, but I still do want to get a medal, hoping to get a medal, but I just want to really pull through this one.
Guys, good to meet both of you. Amit, good to see you. Seth, good to see you as well. When we come back, We're going to wrap things up with the Chick-fil-A Athlete and Teacher of the Week with Assistant Director of Athletics, Mike Schoen. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Joining us now, Assistant Director of Athletics, Mike Schoen. He has the Chick-fil-A Athlete and Teacher of the Week.
Yeah, the Chick-fil-A Teacher of the Week is Father James Sand. Father Sand is new to St. John's, is a young Jesuit priest who I believe went to St. Ignatius or Detroit Jesuit, and we're really excited to have him on campus. He's teaching some English classes for us, so we're excited to have him join our team. And then the student athletes of the week are actually that Novice 8 boat that won this past weekend at Cuyahoga. So that's Brandon Zornak, Sam King, Owen Wilson, Corey Shade, Robert Wright, Tyler Winters, Solomon King, and Aiden Positano. A couple young guys getting it, so I got 8. Bob made sure I had 8 Chick-fil-A cards for them this week, so we're excited for those guys and excited for the upcoming weekend of the Frogtown with the team, and it's always a fun event, and it's a fun thing to go out and witness, what they do every weekend. And unfortunately, for us, the locals, you don't see them all the time, so this is a great opportunity to go out and see them compete and have some fun.
Busy week for soccer. I'm sure a lot of people want to know what's happening with Perrysburg St. John's, but any kind of notice from Bob?
Yeah, I just got an update, so it's 0-0 with 15 minutes to go in the first half. They're at Perrysburg tonight, and we know that Perrysburg's always good, and their goalie is I think a 4-year varsity starter for them, and arguably the best goalie in the state of Ohio. So it's always a tough game. Yeah, and then they have a busy week. The rest of the week they're at, they play at Fremont on Tuesday, and then they go to Anthony Wayne for that makeup game from the lightning issue early in the season. So they play that Saturday night at Anthony Wayne at 5 o'clock.
And again, that Anthony Wayne game, I don't think at the time the soccer team would have competed very well against Anthony Wayne that early. They've changed a lot, though, in the last 3-4 weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and I think they've gotten better. They've found a little more identity. They've seen success and they've seen some failure too, which, as everyone knows, always helps you. So hopefully they're ready for it, and you just want to be playing, just like any sport, you want to be playing your best in that sport at the end of the year. So hopefully they continue to do that. But it'll be a good challenge for them at this time of year, where they can get on the grass field. As we know in the districts, a lot of times you get that opportunity to play on grass, which is not as common as it used to be. So it's good for them this time of year.
Of course, a week ago, golf won the track championship again, seventh year in a row.
Yep.
Sectionals, are they right around the corner?
So they got a little tune-up this weekend. They got the Black Knight invite at Mohawk, and then they play sectionals next Tuesday at Stone Ridge. High expectation for them there, and I think their goal is to go out there and obviously win it and get it. Do well there, do well at districts, and hopefully have another shot at state. So.
And what's the latest with cross country? What are they up to?
Cross country had a great week last week at the Midwest Catholic Championships. I think they finished, in the Division I schools. I think there was 10 of them of all the different Catholic schools. We finished 4th. I think we finished 10th overall throughout the meet. Liam Seipel finished 2nd in the Division I, grouping, and had some other guys place really well. So I know Coach Black's excited about some of the steps. We beat St. Francis for the first time in a meet, last weekend, which is good. And then they're at the Clay Eagle Invite this upcoming weekend. So,
and speaking of guys who should be excited to be your first year as head coach of the basketball program, I know it's a couple months away, but obviously you have to be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And every Friday I take some sort of anti-anxiety pill and sit, watch the football game and hope all our guys stay healthy and see success. And then for the guys that are available in the fall right now, we're in the weight room with open gyms, individual workouts, just trying to get better and get better day by day, and excited to get that next step where you kind of get in that day-to-day true practice, which is coming up before we know it.
Well, can you tell us what you saw during the summertime when you had your shootout, summer shootout at our place? I know you usually go down to Dayton. What was that like?
Yeah, we definitely don't shy away from competition. So we had guys thrown in the fire. We had a lot of young guys. There were shootouts we had where we had no seniors with us for a variety of reasons. Sam was still recovering from the knee. Dimitri was having a foot issue during the summer. Gary and Jack would be off at underachieving at like a Georgetown football camp or something. Not under, they're exactly. Out going to Jacks at Princeton and Yale and all these places checking them out. So those guys were really busy. So I don't think we had a moment where we were a complete unit, which was not a bad thing because we were able to really give a lot of guys opportunities to get on the court, which is, what the goal is of the summer, and see how they compete. So we had good moments, we had bad moments, but that's going to happen when you have a young team that's, trying to find their way. So
I'm glad you could stop by, Mike. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I want to thank the folks from Sidelines. It's always good to have head football coach Larry McDaniel in the house. And how about the guys from Crew? Head coach Chris Samuel, also rowers Jacob Lowry, John Deal, Chet Melchek, Andrew Dake, Seth Parsons, and Amit Tusay. Next time we talk to you will be tomorrow night from Whitmer Memorial Stadium as your St. John's Jesuit Titans take on the Whitmer Panthers pregame at 6:30 on 107.7 The Wolf. I'm Gary Sensenstein saying good night and all the best. And yes, we were live from Sidelines in Maumee. This was the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf.